right. Hey, it's Scott Penfold. Welcome back to another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. And a little bit of a break there, but yeah, we're back and good to go for 2024. Cool show this week, though. Got two guests. First off, going to be joined by Jonny Davy, the vocalist for JOB For A Cowboy. Now, they have the new album out called Moon Healer, the follow-up to Sun Eater, which arrived 10 years ago. So a big gap between albums from the Glendale, Arizona death metal band. Also going to be joining me on the second portion of the show, I'm going to be speaking with Anna Brunner from the symphonic power metal band Exit Eden. Now, Exit Eden is a project which features Anna along with Clementine Delani and Marina Lataraca to make a trio of incredible female vocalists who are giving some pop music classics the metal makeover, and as well releasing some of their own stuff too. They have a new album called Femme Fatales, which dropped back in January 12th actually this year. And it's their sophomore release, a great listen to. And if you're into symphonic power metal, definitely something you're gonna want to check out. But I say, let's get this thing going. Do want to mention though, don't forget, check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news. The 24-hour stream is right there for you as well, featuring live personalities and big name interviews, and as well past episodes of this very podcast and tons more. Get it all at loadedradio.com, and as well follow our socials, man. Get us on Facebook at Loaded Radio Official, on Twitter at Loaded Radio, Instagram at loaded.radio, and TikTok under Loaded Radio. Okay, but here we go. First off, joining me here from the band JOB For A Cowboy, a badass death metal band hailing from Glendale, Arizona. They've been around since 2003, so just over now 20 years the band's been together, and he's the frontman for the band as they have the new album called Moon Healer. It is the follow-up to Sun Eater, and it drops February 23rd via Metal Blade Records. Jonny Davy joining us on the Low Radio podcast. Jonny, how you doing, man?
Not too bad, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Good. You're coming through loud and clear, which is great. It's good to have. First off, thanks for taking the time to talk to us here today on Loaded Radio. Really want to get into, of course, the new album, man. Just really, first off, it's been 10 years, man. What's been going on? What's been happening in that 10 years?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, I think it all started with, we put out our last record, Sun Eater, roughly around, it's already been 10 years. It's terrifying to think about.
2014 it came out, yeah.
So at that point, one of the catalysts, I had a child. Everything got put on pause. Some of the guys worked on their careers, got degrees. Our guitar player got his medical degree. He got his doctorate's degree. I went full steam ahead with programming, focusing on automation, all that nonsense. Some of the guys like Nick, our bassist, joined Havoc for a bit. We just kind of parted ways. We were all doing our own thing, and it just took a bit of time for everything to align again, all the stars to align for us to finally get back together and really put our hearts into something to, just create something that we're all extremely into. And it just took time. That's really what it came down to.
Well, in your mind, was the band done, or was it always there in the back of your mind? Like, yeah, I got to get back to that.
I think the door was always cracked open. I think it was always, if that was it, that was it. It was an awesome run. We're super happy with the last record we put out, but we never announced like, hey, JOB For A Cowboy broke up, just for that fact that we knew that fire would, slowly start to grow again. And that's just kind of what happened. That is exactly what happened. After it just took forever, to be honest.
Well, I should say congratulations on 20 years technically for still keeping this thing going. 5 albums in, man. That's a pretty massive feat. Like, did you think 20 years later you'd still be doing JOB For A Cowboy?
No, man. God, geez. When you say 20 years, it makes me feel so old. It makes me realize, we started this when I was still in high school. I was 15 or 16. 2003, yeah. When we kicked this off, and I don't know. I never imagined that people would still be interested in whatever myself and the other guys are doing. So it's really cool.
Well, you as an individual, since you first started the band, do you find that things have changed for you, like certain tastes in music or tastes in anything? Obviously, everybody grows, but do you find that there's a significant difference between the you that started the band and the you today, the way you look at it?
Yes and no. There's definitely a big growth and maturity there. Just with life and, our music interests have changed a bit, but a lot of our influences still stem for that time frame where we kind of left off. And even from when the band first started, a lot of those influences and ideas are still there. But obviously the band's changed quite a bit since then, from our EP to where we are now is it's almost inarguably vastly different.
Yeah.
No, I guess it's not really.
Now, when you did sort of first jump into the band, I mean, why death metal? Why was it death metal for you?
That's just what we all were into. I mean, I don't know if it's just teenage angst and kids, boys tend to gravitate to that kind of extreme music side. I mean, as so many of us do. I grew up with a kind of a metalhead mom who was super into Pantera, Megadeth, Primus. I kind of grew up on that stuff, and cool. I think if I have to rebel, I have to go way beyond that to a degree.
That makes sense.
But no, I mean, just the death metal genre, for whatever reason, it just captivated me. I was always into horror, whatnot, and it just all tied together. It all weaved together. It all kind of makes sense when I really think about it, especially, like I said, with growing up listening to that type of music.
I do want to jump into the new album, man. Moonhealer, of course. Tell me about working with Jason Sukoff. You've worked with him before, obviously. Why is he your guy?
Well, I think this is our fourth time working with him and collaborating with him this time.
Yeah.
We've continued this ritual with him for a multitude of reasons at this point. I mean, the most obvious being he's an amazing songwriter in and of itself. He's an amazing guitar player and even an insane vocalist. It's really nice to kind of bounce ideas with someone who can. I mean, our music is very technical. It's difficult, and just being able to work with someone who can completely understand and even pulled those things off himself is a huge benefit. So, I mean, he has a huge ear for ideas that I feel few seemingly have just because of his skill level. So, we've become very close and comfortable with him over the years. He's one of my closer friends in life. We totally trust each other, and if we disagree with each other, there's no conflict there. I mean, we're not afraid to let each other know how we really feel.
Now, obviously, with a name like Moonhealer, people are going to ask, is it meant to be somewhat of a spiritual follow-up to Sun Eater, or a direct sequel to it, or even a concept to follow it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's essentially going to be a part two to Sun Eater. Sun Eater was a concept that centered around our close friend who kind of went through a troubled past with drugs and what that did within his life. It's specifically hallucinogenic drugs, and kind of how it altered his mind and state of conscious. So he kind of went on this weird quest for enlightenment through consistent abuse of these type of drugs, and I think it just led to a disconnection from reality due to it all. So this album is carrying on to that idea, and I don't know. It's just it's kind of close to the heart, so it was pretty easy to write about.
Now, is there a storyline exactly, or is it just more of a concept?
Yes and no. It's a little vague. I like to leave it that way. A little bit open to interpretation. So more or less, yes.
The couple of tracks I've heard, man, are just brutal, pounding. I mean, the Agony Seeping Storm. That's the first track I heard. I can definitely hear the technicality in there as well, but I mean, you're bludgeoning still too. Tell me where that song came from.
Really, the star of the record is Tony Sannicandro. He, without him, we wouldn't have been able to create this record. He kind of started all the songs himself, and we just kept bouncing ideas over and over. So he kind of started the seed for every song, and then we built ideas off of those seeds. As far as lyrically goes, again, it's a bit of a concept. So all the songs have a really close relation to one another. I
want to ask about the Forever Rod as well. I'm going to guess it's pretty much the same answer. It's really the same process, I'm guessing.
Pretty much. So I guess a better explanation to my previous answer is that, from a lyric standpoint, I write just almost lyrics to one giant song. When I think of these concept records, I don't kind of write song by song. It's just kind of one giant piece, and then I kind of grab pieces from this giant mountain of lyrics and attach it to songs, just so the concept and all the ideas are all intertwined.
Now, when you write as an individual or as a vocalist, do you write over music that's already been done and it's been laid down, or are you going in and sort of doing it raw with no idea how the music sounds?
Oh, I definitely have a good idea of how the music sounds. I analyze it to the bitter end and then kind of decide how my vocal patterns are going to go after the fact. I feel like you kind of have to with this bit of more technicality that we have.
Is flesh rot still an item? Is that still a thing? Is that still even exist?
I'm glad you hearkened to that because you might already know that was with myself and Navene Koperweis.
Yeah.
That's almost like a solo project, and I just kind of slap my lyrics and vocals to it.
Right.
And of course, we got Navene Koperweis to play drums on this album, so it kind of comes full circle. Him and myself have been really good friends since the early Job for a Cowboy days. Our first tour was can't remember the full lineup, but the most memorable was Cal Decapitation, Animosity, and From a Second Story Window.
Cool.
So Navene Koperweis was from Animosity. We became super close friends, at a super early age in our teens. And, it's been really cool seeing where we've landed in this little niche music scene that we live in. But to go back to the question, as far as whether or not Flesh Rot is dead or not, we've had discussions of, there's actually a bunch of unreleased tracks that we have from many, many years ago. Finally going back, maybe kind of revamping them and releasing them. I just don't know. There's just so much going on with time. He's now full-time with his project Entheos. And, I'm full-time with this band plus, my coding career. So, I hope so. I hope we can find the time to make that happen, but I guess time will tell.
What about Serpent of Gnosis? Is that still an item?
Yes.
Cool.
That is with the guitar players from Job for a Cowboy. On bass is the bassist from the Black Dahlia Murder.
Max Lavelle.
Yep. But Alan Glassman is the main writer for that. And he is wrapping up writing a new record. So I hope in the near future we might be able to release something. But again, just getting everyone on the same page, especially like with Max now, is the Black Dahlia Murders kind of ramping back up with, their new record. I guess, again, time will tell. It just, whenever we find the time, I'm sure that'll happen sooner than later.
Being that you're working with Alan and Tony pretty much with that band, do you find it's pretty much just like working with Job for a Cowboy, or is there like a definite difference in the creation process?
With Job for a Cowboy, it is more of a group effort where we don't really agree to put anything out unless we all agree upon it. It's very democratic.
Right.
I might push things and try to curate things in a specific direction. But regardless, still, it all comes down to we all need to be happy with it. But with Serpent of Gnosis, that's a bit more of Alan Glassman's project. That's kind of his baby.
Yeah.
So whatever he says goes.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how that works. Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned about, the group effort, the collective when it came to Job for a Cowboy. There's been a lot of member changes within the band. Why do you think that is? And do people think that it's kind of like that you're doing like a Trent Reznor kind of a thing with the band? Or why do you think the personnel has changed so much?
It's a tough one. I think what it really comes down to is that was all those member changes really came from we were touring relentlessly. And I think that touring aspect really hit some of those guys hard, and they couldn't commit to the strenuous touring schedule that we had. For the vast majority of it, I think that's really all it comes down to.
But when it comes to, people thinking that the band is kind of like your thing, being that you're the only guy that's been there since the beginning, I know that you've said that before it's a group effort, but do you kind of like pretty much have the final word on what happens and what doesn't happen?
I hear the guys say that, but that's actually something that's brought up on some of the decision making in the band, where some guys in the band will say that to me directly. It's like, no, and I just have to say I don't feel that way at all. Like,
right.
For instance, like I said, Tony Sannicandro, he kind of started the seed for all of this, and I mentioned that we couldn't have done any of this without him. I understand their perspective, but I personally don't feel that way.
Going back to the beginning again, the name Job for a Cowboy, I've heard different reasons why you guys did choose the name. Just for clarity's sake, why did the name Job for a Cowboy stick with the band?
I think I always say I wish I had a better story for this, but it just kind of kicked. We were very young and we're trying to think of a band name.
Yeah.
And I think we went through, I don't remember if Metal Archives even existed back then, but I remember we went through dozens of band names and searching them up and realized, okay, this is taken, this is taken, this is taken, can't do that, this is taken. And it just never ended. So we just thought, okay, let's just think of the most ridiculous thing that wouldn't possibly exist. And I think what it came down to, we kind of chose that as a bit of a joke. We played our first show and it just kind of got stuck with us. And for whatever reason, people tend to remember it just because of the ridiculous nature of what it is.
Obviously, the album's going to be dropping next month. What's going to be happening after that? You guys going to be hitting the road? You're going to be doing a lot of touring for the album? What's going to be happening?
There is a lot of things in the works, in discussion.
Okay.
Nothing confirmed yet, so I can't speak of anything to that light yet. But just be on the lookout. I'm sure something will be popping up very soon.
Well, that's cool. So you can't give us any hints at all, nothing at all. But I mean, assuming you will be on the road at some point.
I would say it's probably likely.
Now, getting into you personally, I just wanted to ask you this before we wrap things up, though. What are you listening to these days? What are you digging?
Oh man, it's hard to say these days. I mean, honestly, like after putting so much thought and effort into that record, I've gotten so burnt out on metal. I've just been listening to a lot of drum and bass. That's kind of delve into, especially for my profession. I was sitting around coding quite a bit. It's just nice having that in the background.
Of course.
As far as anything goes, man, and due to the fact that I am so burnt out, if I do listen to something metal related, I just kind of go back to my all-time favorites, just the staples that are always true to my heart, which would be some older Nile, Martyr, Anata. I go back to older Dillinger, Escape Plan. Man, those are the first things that popped in my head that I know I've listened to recently. But right now I'm just kind of in the burnout phase. So it's right now nothing really too new at the moment.
Beautiful, Jonny. Thank you so much for your time, man. And you know what? I look forward to any announcements coming up about the band. I'm curious.
Cool. Thank you so much, man. It's really nice talking with you. Hope you have a good day.
You as well, man. All the best.
Bye.
All right, that's Jonny Davy from Job for a Cowboy. The new album is called Moon Healer. It arrives February 23rd via Metal Blade Records. Release marks the band's first new full length in a decade, and it's some great full-on American death metal, man. Check it out for yourself. Strongly recommend it when it does drop. There's some great tracks out there already, too. But we're going to continue the podcast now with another guest. This is Anna Brunner. Now, Anna is one of 3 vocalists for the symphonic power metal band Exit Eden. Now, they have their sophomore album, which dropped on January the 12th of this year. It's called Femme Fatales. It features 6 songs that are covers of rock and pop classics and 6 brand new tracks as well. And Anna joining us live from Germany now. Anna, how you doing?
Good, great, perfect. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really do appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward.
Now, for those who don't know, how did the band initially come together back in 2017?
Yeah, well, trying to put this in a few words, I could probably just talk about how this all came together for like 1.5 hours. I was working for a production company in northern Germany, and they had a new idea. It was their idea to have these cover pop songs, in the symphonic metal style.
Yeah.
And I worked as a studio musician and just recorded, like the demo vocals. And then they asked Amanda Somerville, who was initially part of the band, or she was the first one to kind of join. And she actually pointed out that, why don't we ask that girl singing the demo vocals? She's great. And that's kind of that's a cool story how I got into the project. And then they also found Marina and Clementine. So this was how our 4-piece female vocal group got together.
Now, you did mention Amanda Somerville. She recently just did vacate the band. Why did she leave altogether?
Yeah, she became mother. I mean, she's the mother of three girls now. And right. I think, to be honest, it was also during COVID that she kind of noticed what is important in life. Where do I want to spend my time? Where do I want to put my energy in? And being a mother and being there for your family was one of the main things she was really, what was important to her. Yeah, and I think when we started planning this, of course, we were like shooting for being on the road, and you never know how things are gonna evolve. But she stepped back before even really like getting into the whole planning and getting involved, and then having to step back or something like that. So she decided before the whole new creative process of the second album.
So why did you guys choose to not replace her? You just want to move forward as a trio? Like, why that decision? Was just something that it was never even a question of?
For me, it wasn't, because for me, it's like you just can't find another person for Amanda Somerville. It would not be fair to the girl or guy who would have to. I mean, this was one of the reasons. The other one is also, I mean, we have such a great vibe in the band, and the girls and I we're really close friends. And of course, there could have been a person who would vibe personally. Obviously, there are many great women out there, but why not keep it with three? I mean, three vocalists is special enough. You don't necessarily need four, in my opinion.
Of course. Getting into like the reworking of the songs, of like pop songs, of even of rock songs, how do you guys go about choosing which songs you're going to cover?
So the first record was totally crazy, I want to say, with like, Paparazzi, and then we had the Backstreet Boys song and Heaven, if I'm not wrong. There's been many cover versions of that song. But there were really, really super different styles, super different genres, super different times. And for this record, since we also have original tracks on this record, we wanted it to be more like come out of like one feeling, that it's not too crazy and not like an ABBA tune and a Disney song and this and that, but that it all has the symphonic ness in the main composition of the song, or it has a certain type of fatale, a certain type of evil or a seductive vibe in the music or the lyrics. So this was how we chose the cover songs.
2017, the first album came out. It's now we're into 2024. Why the big wait? Obviously, COVID was a part of that, but why such a long wait between two albums there?
I mean, it feels even longer, to be honest. There were many like circumstances coming together. I mean, first of all, COVID was like the big elbow that really screwed our planning and screwed everything we had in mind before it hit. Before that, we even had, we had like a label change. We were with Napalm before, but also with a German label doing the main, label stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And so this was a change even before COVID. And then through COVID, the bands have all just kind of been in like the waiting zone. Is like there's so many releases that were postponed, and that's why we really the album was done, and then we had to wait even to be able to release it.
I think it's a great album as well, by the way. I've heard both albums, and the first one very, very well done as well. This one really hits me because some of the covers you did, I just think are really, really well done. I mean, for example, Separate Ways, I think is just so great and a great way to lead off. Why that song, and how was it performing that song and creating it in your own way?
So we had really, really many ideas of cover songs, and then only having to be able to choose 6 was quite hard.
Sure.
And to be honest, I'm kind of happy that our producer made the decision of which songs we will finally cover. And
really? Okay.
Yes, actually, absolutely. And he did the vocal arrangements, and we were also, of course, able to try things out in the studio and just like, see where this leads us. What I love about art, I think sometimes things aren't really figured out. Everything's not figured out from the beginning, but things sometimes really just fall in place. Like Separate Ways, for example, I'm always kind of thinking of Amanda when we sing the song in the video, because, sometimes things just part and it's okay. And this is kind of, I don't know, I never even told the girls about this, but this is kind of always in the back of my mind, starting this record with this song and leading to a new chapter,
Aside from the great covers, there are some phenomenal originals as well. I mean, you had Marco there from formerly Nightwish. Of course, he did Run with you guys. Tell me about that experience. That's very cool.
Oh my gosh, that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We didn't even have that as a plan to have a feature with anybody, to be honest.
Right.
So we were in the studio and recording. Marina and I were there at the same time. And we had finished like the C part, that's rush, get away part where it's like kind of the breakdown. And I recorded the vocals on that. And our producer said, hey, try to sing it a little bit in the Marco Hietala vibe. And we were shooting for it. And then it was like this moment, it planted something in our minds. It was like, yeah, but why not ask him? And maybe, and then it actually worked out with Napalm reaching out to him. And he's such a great laid back guy. I mean, it was wonderful to do the video with him for a run. Great experience.
What about the band's writing process? Obviously, with the covers, you're going with a certain way with those. But when it comes to creating original material, what is the process that the three of you have when it comes to coming up with new songs?
It was quite difficult to start, to be honest, because we had this cover record as the reference. And of course, all super successful hits, it's like kind of reaching for the stars in the creative process, which doesn't always help.
Sure.
But once we kind of I remember even Marina and I bouncing ideas back and forth in 2019 where nothing was really safe, but we were like, actually, Exit Eden could be next level if we had original songs on this record. And I remember that. And then when it got serious in the creative process, we got together with our producer, Hannes Brown, who I also work a lot with, and we bounced ideas back and forth. And then it kind of, evolved. It grew into ideas, and he's a really great songwriter too. So he was able to, push our ideas or have ideas of his own to write for us. And that's how the record was created.
So do the three of you ever sit down with him or say anybody and actually just like hash out a song kind of a thing? Or is it more like you bring ideas in, or how does it work?
It's more of like, pre-recording at home some ideas and then bouncing it to him and showing him what he thinks, and then he'll bounce it back, or it was like, some of the songs are like, I'm not quite sure. I have many like crazy ideas, and for my band League of Distortion, this is always good to be able to really go totally crazy. But for the symphonic metal audience, we wanted to have it, a little bit low key and not too crazy.
No, I understand. And you did mention League of Distortion. I did want to bring them up. Cool band, man. I didn't know about League of Distortion previously. I recently checked them out. Very cool stuff. Not like Exit Eden. It's a little different.
Exactly, so much. Yeah, it's totally different world, actually.
Now, is League of Distortion, are they also with Napalm?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. Now, do you find it like a big heavy load for you to take on like the responsibilities of both bands?
Not yet.
No, not yet. Okay.
There's not enough going on yet. There are like time periods. So we're actually in the pre-recording process for League of Distortion for the new album. And of course, it's a different mindset to like sit down and talk about Exit Eden. And that's been kind of a little bit of switch back and forth. But sometimes I'm like starting to write lyrics, and then I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound like League of Distortion. It sounds like Exit Eden.
With Exit Eden specifically, I mean, the album of the second album now, what's going to be done? You guys going to be hitting the road in support of the album? What's the plans? We would love that. It's actually not, I can't share enough or anything about that yet right now. Okay.
Because, it's so crazy. We didn't know how this whole album and how the release was gonna act,
Right.
After not being there for so long. And also we do have a quite international audience. So thinking about tours, like, are we starting in Germany, Europe, or going straight to the US? It's like, we don't know.
Yeah. No, I did want to ask, of course, the Wacken experience for you. How was that?
That was so cool.
I'll bet.
I actually, sometimes I'm looking over to the side because I actually still have this thing they had on our dressing room, Exit Eden, back and open here 2018. And I got to keep it. I just took it. But
Nice.
it always kind of reminds me of this event, of this great show. And, it was one of the first shows we did, and having the audience rocking off to like Backstreet Boys tunes, but they were in our style, so there's nothing wrong about that.
Of course. No, I get you. I'm hoping that something does get announced, because we'd love to see you over here in North America and everything. And of course, I hope the same for League of Distortion as well. Both very good bands. Anna, thank you so much for taking the time today. Great interview, man. And good luck. Hopefully we'll see you at some point soon.
I would love that. Let's keep in touch for that. And
Certainly.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Okay, that's Anna Brunnerf. She is from the band Exit Eden. And definitely check out Femme Fatales. It's their sophomore release, man, and it's good. It's got some great bangers on there when it comes to reworking some rock and pop classics. They sound great. Don't forget, check out loadedradio.com. As well, follow our socials on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And also don't forget to download the Loaded Radio app. It's completely free, where you can get the radio station as well as past episodes of this very podcast. All your hard rock and metal news sent right to your device as well, okay? That's it for me. I'm Scott Penfold, and we'll talk to you again next week on an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. Talk to you then.